All right. Thanks for tuning in. You are listening to Gnostic Studies. And this evening we'd like to do a lecture. We're going to continue with our Tarot and Kabbalah series. And so let's see if we can get the URL that we want to work with today. Well, first we want to review the previous class. That's always of use. So we'll do that first. And we'll put the URL in the description. Or in the comments area. Okay, so first things first, before we jump into Arcanum 17, which is today's class, we want to review Arcanum 16. If you remember, Arcanum 15 and 16 go together. They kind of teach us related concepts. Arcanum 15 is that temptation, that pull, that possibility of becoming intoxicated with the polarities related with the creative energy. Arcanum 16 is if we allow ourselves to fall, that is, to become trapped or snared by the currents, those energies. So we have to learn how to manage our energies properly, which is why we recommend transmutation of the creative energies and pranayama, hamsa, those type of exercises, lamasery exercises, because they can always help us. So if we review the previous classes, the name of the card in various languages for the previous class, Arcanum 16, sometimes called the Tower or Fragility. In French, it's like the lightning or the fire from the sky, fire from heaven, also called the House of God. And in some cards, it's called the Pyramid. There's some, I'll show you the card. This one from French, I think it's in the late 1800s. It's very similar graphic, but it's a pyramid is their temple. The idea being that when we violate the law of karma, the divine law, then lightning strikes. That is, we receive the consequence for our action, which is symbolized by a lightning-struck tower. The meaning of the card is the fulminated or lightning-struck tower. Punishment, terrible fall, the departure from Eden, danger. It is necessary to awaken consciousness so as not to wander blindly. The blind can fall into the abyss. The initiate who spills the vessel of Hermes inevitably falls. Transcendental axiom. Light at dawn, light at midday, light at nightfall. What is important is that there is light. We discussed the explanation of the card in that class, in the previous class. And we want to cover the related explanation from our friend Eliphas Levi. He says, the astral light is the substance that God created before everything else. When he said, "Let there be light." The astral light is both substance and movement. It is fluid and a perpetual vibration. It is the vital element which manifests itself through the phenomenon of heat, light, electricity, and magnetism. The world is magnetized by the light of the sun, and we are magnetized by the astral light of the world. That which operates in the body of the planet is repeated in us. We breathe out our thoughts and feelings and breathe in those of others that have been imprinted on the astral light, which has become their electromagnetic atmosphere. The secret fire of the masters of alchemy is the astral light. They communicate and direct the magnetic vibrations of the astral light at will. The empire of willpower over the astral light is represented by the pentagram. Nothing resists the willpower of a human being when they know the truth and will the good. But when one's will is vowed to the absurd, it is condemned by eternal reason. Regardless of the direction it is given, what is willed with persistence is done. Every real will is confirmed by acts. Every will confirmed by an act is an action. Every action is subject to a judgment, and this judgment is eternal. Willpower realized through action is like a cannonball or a bullet, and never backs down before an obstacle. The good or evil which you will, either to yourself or to others, in the extension of your willpower and within the sphere of your action, will definitely arrive, either for others or for you, if you confirm your willpower and if you capture your determination through acts. Actions confirm one's willpower. The other things that are on the handout are the practices, reminding us that we need to strengthen our three brains. We can pray to our inner being, who's symbolized in the Egyptian cosmology as Horus. We can pray to our inner being to strengthen our three brains so that we do not become fascinated by anything, so that we can remember ourselves, so that we can be present. And also, the invocation of Solomon can be used as a prayer to ask for help from the superior powers, which is given there. And as always, we have the different tarot cards, different versions of the tarot cards there. All right, well, we'll stop with the review and we'll jump into today's class. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments area. And we'll give you the URL here in case you want to follow along. All right, we see here the graphics, the letters from different systems, from Egyptian, Samaritan, Phoenician, Syrian, etc., which all represent the same thing, which is the 17th letter of the esoteric alphabet that we're studying. It corresponds to number 17, but the number 80 numerically. Arcanum 17, the star of 8 points, right? 1 plus 7 equals 8. The star of 8 points always represents Venus, the morning star. In Arcanum 17, we find the Gnostic initiation. The symbol of Venus shows us that the circle of the spirit must be above the cross. Sex. That is to say, sex under the control of the spirit. The sign inverted represents that the spirit is dominated by sex. Hebrew letter Pe. Hour. It is the 8th hour of Apollonius. The astral virtues of the elements and of the seeds of every kind. Transcendental axiom. Some men beg for signs so as to believe, and others beg for wisdom so as to act. But the hopeful heart has everything in its hopes. In our first reading from chapter 17 of Manual of Practical Magic by Samael Lowenweor, he has Hope as the title. The art of speaking with the sidereal gods. The magician can talk with the gods anytime they want to. We can see the gods face to face without dying. Whosoever wants to talk with the sidereal gods does not need carnival horoscopes. We should transform ourselves into terribly divine beings. To converse with the sidereal gods, we should learn to get out in the astral body. In the astral body, we have to learn to transport ourselves to the temple of the planetary gods. Being outside the body, the magician walks in circles, from right to left, placing the imagination and willpower on the planetary temple they desire to visit. Then the magician will follow a straight line, walking in the direction of the temple. To the right of every cosmic temple, there is a white column. To the left of every cosmic temple, there is a black column. The magician greets the guardian on the right, saying, Jakin. The magician greets the guardian on the left, saying, Boaz. In the interior of the temple, we can speak with the planetary gods to get to know our authentic and legitimate horoscopes. The persons who have one transverse line on the forehead are children of Gabriel. Those who have 2 lines are children of Raphael. Those who have 3 lines are children of Uriel. Those who have 4 lines are children of Michael. Those who have 5 are children of Samael. Those who have 6 are children of Zachariel. Those who have 7 are children of Oriphiel. That information is also given, or more information on this subject is also given in a book called The 7 Words by the same author. That is the sometimes called the Glorian, or the ray that we come from. Moving on to the second reading, the 17th Arcanum from Esoteric Course of Kabbalah. This is the 17th Arcanum of the Tarot. The hieroglyphic of this arcanum is the radiant star and eternal youth. In this arcanum, there appears a naked woman who is spreading the sap of universal life over the earth, which is coming out of 2 vessels, one made of gold, the other made of silver. If we carefully study the esoteric content of this arcanum, we will discover perfect alchemy. We need to work with the gold and with the silver, with the sun and with the moon, in order to incarnate the star. The star has 8 points. Really, the star of 8 points is Venus. Whosoever wants to attain the Gnostic initiation or Venusian initiation has the bliss of whosoever attains the Venusian initiation has the bliss of incarnating the Dragon of Wisdom, the internal Christ. Arcanum 17 represents hope. The Gnostic student should be very careful with the work in the Laboratorium Oratorium. Since the betrayal of the sanctuary of Vulcan, the doctrine of Ahriman was spread everywhere. This is the doctrine of the Nicolaitans that transforms human beings into demons. The adepts of the left-hand path color their doctrine a very beautiful hue, filled with ineffable and sublime mysticism. Many are the brethren of the path who have entered this tenebrous path. So those who have been deviated. The basic foundation of the doctrine of the Nicolaitans consists of spilling the cup of Hermes. These children of darkness spill the Eint Seminis during their practices of sexual magic. Billions of solar atoms are lost through orgasm with the loss of the Eint Seminis, which are replaced by billions of atoms from the secret enemy. These satanic atoms are picked up from the atomic infernos of the human being by the creative organs after the spasm. When such satanic atoms attempt to rise through the sympathetic canals to the brain, they are downwardly precipitated by the three rays of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. When these kinds of tenebrous atoms descend, they violently crash against a master atom of the Black Lodge that resides in the fundamental chakra of the coccygeal bone. This black atomic god then receives a formidable impulse, which gives him power to negatively awaken the Kundalini, or igneous serpent of our magical powers, as the Kundartiguador or Kundabuffer organ. In this case, the Kundalini descends downward to the atomic infernos of the human being and becomes the tail of Satan. This is how the human being is definitively born in the abyss as a submerged sublunar type of demon. There are many students of the luminous path that have gone astray through this black path. It is good to remember that the great masters of the sanctuary of Vulcan fell under this subtle temptation and were converted into terrible, perverse demons. The narrow door. There are many students of occultism who are convinced that many paths exist in order to reach God. There are some who affirm that 3 paths exist. There are others who state that 7 paths exist, and still others who believe 12 exist. We state that the 3, the 7, and the 12 are reduced to 1, which is sex. We have carefully studied the 4 Gospels and have not found within any of the 4 Gospels such an affirmation that states that there are multiple ways to reach God. This affirmation is absolutely false. Really, such an affirmation is a sophism in order to cheat those who are naive. Jesus, the chief of the souls, only spoke of one door and of one straight and difficult, narrow path. He never stated there were multiple ways to reach God. Everyone that says this is a solemn liar. The great master Jesus textually stated the following: "Be striving to go in through the strait gate, because many, I say to you, will seek to go in, and shall not be able." From the time the master of the house may have risen up, and may have shut the door, and ye may begin without standing, and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. And he shall answer, saying to you, I have not known you whence ye are. Then ye may begin to say, We did eat before thee, and did drink, and in our broad places thou didst teach. And he shall say, I say to you, I have not known you whence ye are. Depart from me, all ye workers of the unrighteousness. There shall be the weeping and gnashing of the teeth, when ye may see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all the prophets in the reign of God, and yourselves being cast out without. From Luke chapter 13, verses 24 through 28. Really, those who are saved are very few, because few are those who enter through that straight, narrow, and difficult door of sex. There is no other door. No other door has ever existed and will ever exist. The mechanical evolution of nature does not save anyone. Time does not save anyone. It is necessary to be born, and this subject of birth has been, is, and will always be an absolutely sexual problem. Thus, anyone who wants to be born again has to work with the sap of life that is contained within the two sacred cups that the naked woman of Arcanum 17 has in her two hands. The three rays. It has been stated that there exist three rays of intimate self-realization. These three rays illuminate only one door and only one path: sex. The three rays are mysticism, yoga, and the perfect matrimony. However, without the Arcanum AZF, it is not possible to advance a single step on the path of the razor's edge, the spinal medulla. Yoga. In the Western world, the teachings of yoga have been delivered in a very bad manner. A lot of pseudo-sapient yogis have spread the false belief that the true yogi must be an infrasexual, an enemy of sex. Some of these false yogis have never even visited India. They are infrasexual pseudo-yogis. These ignoramuses believe that with these yogic exercises, such as asanas, pranayamas, etc., they're going to achieve in-depth self-realization. The worst of these cases is that they not only have such false beliefs, but additionally they propagate them. Thus, they cause many people to stray away from the straight, narrow, and difficult door that leads to the light. No authentically initiated yogi from India would ever think that with pranayamas or asanas, etc., intimate self-realization could be achieved. Every legitimate Hindustani yogi knows very well that such yogic exercises are only supplementary exercises that are very useful for their health and for the development of their powers, etc. Only the Western pseudo-yogis have within their minds that with these mentioned exercises, they would be able to self-realize. In the ashrams of India, sexual magic is practiced very secretly. Every true initiated yogi from India works with the Arcanum AZF taught by the great Hindustani yogis that have visited the Western world. And if this has not been taught by these great initiated Hindustani yogis, if this has not been published in the books of yoga, it was precisely to avoid scandals. Sex is the stumbling stone and the rock of scandal. You can be absolutely sure that those yogis who do not practice sexual magic will never achieve birth in the superior worlds. The one who affirms the contrary is a liar, an impostor. Astrology. In each reincorporation, the human being is born under a different star. A wise man stated, "I raise my eyes towards the stars that will come to my rescue. Nonetheless, I always follow the star which guides my interior." Really, that star is always the same. It does not change in any of our reincarnations or returns or reincorporations. It is the star of the Father, Keter. Thus, what is most important for us is to incarnate the star of the Father. Behold here the mystery of Arcanum 17. When the sap, which is contained within the gold and silver cups, is wisely combined and transmuted, then it allows us to attain the incarnation of the star. The star, crucified on the cross, is the Christ. That was the end of our second reading. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments area. We'll jump into our third. This is from Initiatic Path in the Arcana of Tarot and Kabbalah. Description of the card. In the waters of life are two triangles, the positive and the negative. In the middle part is a woman who's watering the earth with two elixirs, masculine and feminine. Upon her head is a lotus flower, indicating her developed chakras. In the upper part shines the 8-rayed star of Venus, symbolizing that after the initiations of fire come those of light. Esoteric significance of Arcanum 17. The hieroglyph of Arcanum 17 is the radiant star and eternal youth. In this arcanum, a naked woman appears, who spreads the sap of universal life upon the earth, which comes from two vessels, one of gold and one of silver. If we carefully study the esoteric content of this arcanum, we discover perfect alchemy. We need to work with the gold and the silver, with the sun and the moon, in order to incarnate the star of 8 points, the morning star. Really, the star of 8 points is Venus. Whosoever obtains the Gnostic initiation has the joy of incarnating the dragon of wisdom, the internal Christ. One must work with the fire and the water in order to receive the Gnostic initiation. The star crucified upon the cross is the Christ of Abraxas, the Son of Man, the Verb incarnated. In the revelation of St. John, there is a documentation about Venus, the morning star. And he that overcometh, I will give him the morning star. Revelations 2, verses 26 through 28. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you regarding these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Revelations 22, verse 16. Christ is the star of dawn. When one receives the Gnostic initiation, Christ enters the soul. When we decapitate and dissolve the I, the myself, we then receive the Gnostic initiation. Whosoever receives this incarnates their star. The star is the Son of Man, the truth. No one can seek the truth. The truth cannot be known by the I, the ego. No one can search for that which they do not know. Satan, the I, the ego, which we carry within, cannot know the truth. The truth cannot be studied, read, or recognized by the mind. The truth is absolutely different from all that can be read, studied, or recognized by the mind. The truth arrives when we have decapitated and dissolved the I, the ego. The various truths of people are none other than projections of the mind. Decapitate your own I, your own ego, dissolve it with rigorous purifications. In this manner you achieve the Gnostic initiation. Then you will incarnate the truth. The Verb will be made flesh in you. You will incarnate the Son of Man and receive the morning star. Whosoever wants to incarnate the star must work with the essence of life contained in the two sacred vessels which the naked woman of Arcanum 17 has in her hands. The star which guides us internally is the Father Star. The important thing for us is to incarnate that Father Star. Here we have the mystery of Arcanum 17. The sap contained in the vessels of gold and silver, when wisely combined and transmuted, enables us to achieve the incarnation of the star. The star crucified upon the cross is the Christ. And moving on to our final reading from, I think it's chapter 34. Let's see what it says. 39 of the same book, Initiatic Path in the Arcana of Tarot and Kabbalah. We'll read now about the initiatic significance of Arcanum 17. And as always, feel free to leave any questions or comments that you may have right there in the comments area. Initiatic significance of Arcanum 17. The star of 8 points of this arcanum represents Venus, the evening star. We find represented in this arcanum the work with the gold and the silver, with the sun and with the moon. The ancient alchemists said that the moon had to be transformed into the sun. One must know how to understand this. With this, what was intended was to abandon the lunar path and follow the solar path. All people are lunar. The moon moves them here and there, and the moon takes them everywhere. Let us analyze this detail. The first 7 years of life of childhood are lunar. They are brought by the moon. The second septenary, the years from 7 to 14, are Mercurian. The child moves this way and that, goes to school. He needs to move. The third septenary is from 14 to 21 and is Venusian. Here the sting is felt, and there are love interests. It is obvious that at 14 years of age, the sexual glands enter into activity and their influence manifests in the human being. From 21 to 42, there are 7 septenaries, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, or 3 solar periods. This is the struggle to gain our place in life. In that epoch, 21 to 42, what one is manifests exactly as it is. The 7th septenary is from 42 to 49 years and is Martian. There are struggles. It is a decisive epoch for each one. The 8th septenary, from 49 to 56 years, this is the influence of Jupiter in the human being. In that period, for those who have good karma, things go well economically. For those who do not, things go badly. In the 9th septenary, from 56 to 63, old Saturn enters, and old age comes to the human being. It is a Saturnian period ruled by the Ancient of the Heavens. The person may presume himself or herself to be whatever they wish. After the age of 63, we enter old age. The lunar influence comes once again. The moon brings one, and the moon takes one. So it becomes then Saturn and the moon, then Saturn and Mercury, Saturn and Venus, etc. If the life of the human being is examined, it is seen that everything is ruled by the moon. And when one enters into the internal worlds, one enters via the doorway of the moon. The important thing is to transform the moon into the sun. And to attain this, one must work with the gold and with the silver. Without alchemy, this arcanum could not be understood. The most important thing is to transmute the lead into gold. This is the work which must be realized in the forge of the Cyclops. The vital part of this Arcanum 17 is in the Gnostic initiation. It is the highest part of the Arcanum and is represented by the 8-pointed star of Venus. If we carefully observe the symbol of Venus, we find the circle, the spirit, and the cross, sex under control of the spirit. The inverse of the sign represents the spirit which is dominated by sex. This is what happens on earth, that sex has dominated the spirit. It is in its positive aspect. Venus, the star of dawn, is very grand, is marvelous, and is the Gnostic initiation. But in its negative aspect, however, we find the Luciferic part. The ideal time for astral projection is at dawn, the hour of Venus. But if one is not at a very pure level, the Luciferic currents pull. Remember, Venus-Lucifer, which has two aspects. Just as there is a sacred fire which rises, the Kundalini, there is the fire which descends, the Kundartiguador or Kundabuffer. All of the work with alchemy is to attain the Gnostic initiation, which is really something very difficult. We have the case of Madame Blavatsky, who met Count Blavatsky. After 2 months of marriage, she was separated from him without having had a sexual relationship. She traveled to India and was in Shangri-La. Her mission was grandiose. She wrote The Secret Doctrine in 6 volumes. She finishes by inviting those, in the 6th volume, she finishes by inviting those who read it to practice alchemy, without which one cannot attain self-realization. She was already mature when she married Colonel Olcott. This marriage was not motivated by passion. The reason is to be found in the internal worlds. And she created the solar bodies. Madame Blavatsky is a lady adept who realized the great work. She did not, however, attain the Gnostic initiation. She's preparing to take the body of a male because she's going to be born in the USA. She's been given encouragement in order to not dismay, because to renounce the great nirvana and to return to this world is not an agreeable thing. Sex is necessary in order to achieve the Gnostic initiation, because there are 7 serpents of fire which correspond to the 7 bodies: the physical, etheric, astral, mental, causal, buddhic, and that of the intimus, or atmic. A serpent corresponds to each one, there being a total of 7 serpents, 2 groups of 3 with the sublime coronation which unites us with the Father, with the law. Whosoever wishes to attain the Gnostic initiation must raise the 7 serpents of light. The first to be raised is that of the physical body, in order to receive the first Gnostic initiation. Then that of the vital body, which corresponds to the second Gnostic initiation, and so on successively. The incarnation of the Christ begins with the Gnostic initiation and is experienced in 2 forms. First, in the symbolic form, and after having developed all that is given in the initiation, it is then lived. This is the crude reality, to practice what is preached. It is an arduous work. Christ is the master of masters. It is erroneous of people to believe that Jesus is the only Christ. Hermes, Quetzalcoatl, Fuxi, Krishna, etc. also incarnated the Christ. This incarnated one must do as he preaches. And this he does. Being God, he becomes man. He has to fight against his own passions, against everything. Gold is tested with fire, and it is always victorious. He incarnates, becomes a man when necessary, and he does it with the objective of changing the world. He is the being of our being. In him we are all one. He submerges into the Father, and he in turn submerges within him. He who incarnates the Christ passes the test and goes far beyond nirvana to the worlds of super happiness and joy. Only the valiant enter this path. If one does not know how to hold onto the Father with force and onto the Mother with soul, life, and heart, one does not reach the goal. One fails. One must hold on to one's father and one's mother, developing love. If one does not have love, then how will one be able to seek solace in one's parents? In this world, there is actually no Rose-Cross school, the single and authentic one being in the internal worlds. I was submitted to a test in the Rose-Cross Monastery. It was the test of patience. One is intentionally given the test of patience. And finally, we have the synthesis of Arcanum 17. The highest objective is to attain the Gnostic initiation. This is Arcanum 17, the incarnation of the Christ. The Christ does not have individuality, nor personality, nor I or ego. He is the true instructor, the supreme great master, the master of masters. The Lamb of God is Christ. He washes away the sins of the world. But for this one must work. He is the true instructor of the world. In Egypt, Christ was called Osiris. Whosoever incarnated him was a new Osirified one. And they had to sacrifice themselves for all of humanity. One must know how to be patient. One must know how to be serene. So that's the end of information we wanted to share with you, the end of our readings for this class. So we want to open it up now for any questions or comments that you may have regarding the subjects that were mentioned. We also want to invite you to class next week. We hope next week. We'll post it as soon as we have confirmation. It'll either be next week or the following Thursday, but it's looking good for next week. And we'll post a meditation whenever we have that dialed in as well. Will probably be on a Friday. Friday in the northern hemisphere. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions or comments at this time. So we want to thank you for your participation through sharing your attention with us. We hope that the information is useful and that you can benefit from it or that it stimulates something inside of you. We encourage you to send us an email or Leave a comment if you have questions later on. And we want to wish you the best with your esoteric work.